All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on the real-world playbook for sustainability professionals. We're going to move past the theory and get into the nitty-gritty of the skills that actually, get things done. So let's just start with a huge question. When you think about tackling these massive global problems, what skills do you really need? I mean, is it all about being a brilliant scientist, a master analyst, or is there something more to it?
You see, there's this new kind of professional emerging, people who are dedicated to taking on these challenges head on. You can call them sustainability pros, change agents, whatever you want, but their job is basically to turn all that talk into real, tangible action.
But what's actually in their toolkit? It's a massive question, and it has huge implications for how we train people for these roles. Well, a recent study decided to find out by going straight to the source, the most experienced, seasoned experts they could find. The researchers got together with 18 of these pros from Belgium. And when I say experienced, I really mean it. Just get this. On average, these folks had 24 years of total work experience under their belts. And a staggering 17 of those years were spent working specifically in sustainability. We're talking about the pioneers, the people who've been in the trenches since the very beginning. In fact, the research partner had this great affectionate nickname for them. They called them their dinosaurs. Not because they're old-fashioned, but to really emphasize their incredible, deep experience and their long track record of getting stuff done. These are the people who know what actually works.
So, what did these dinosaurs say was most important? Well, first, let's look at what we might call the foundational toolkits. These are the skills that are often taught in universities, the stuff we think you need.
This includes things like your basic academic skills, critical thinking. It includes systems thinking, so you can see how everything is connected, futures thinking, to imagine what's possible, and values thinking, to handle all the ethical dilemmas. It's all about understanding the problem.
But here's the kicker. While all those thinking skills are absolutely crucial, they only made up about 6.5% of what these experts actually talked about, a tiny fraction. So, what in the world did they spend the other 93% of their time on? And this slide just nails the disconnect. So much of what's taught in school is focused on analyzing and understanding problems. But what these experts are screaming from the rooftops is that what's needed on the job is the ability to create, change, and actually implement solutions.
Which brings us to the main event, the real-world playbook. This is all about the skills for getting things done. And there it is. A whopping 74.1%, nearly 3/4 of the entire discussion was about what the researchers call sustainability intervention competencies. This isn't just about thinking, this is about doing. It's about being able to jump in, co-create solutions, and make change happen. So, what are these all-important intervention skills? The study boils them down to 6 key areas: interpersonal collaboration, capacity building, entrepreneurial ability, strategic thinking, political savvy, and last but not least, implementation skills. Now, of all those, one stood head and shoulders above the rest: interpersonal collaboration. It was mentioned 130 times. It's clearly the absolute heart of this whole playbook. One of the participants put it so perfectly. Alone, we are nothing. The ability to bring people together, build trust, and work with stakeholders, that's not a soft skill. According to these experts, it's the core competency, period. Okay, another huge one was what they called intrapreneurial competency. It's a fancy word, but it basically means you have to act like an entrepreneur, but inside a big existing organization. It's all about being creative and resourceful when you don't have enough time, money, or people. I love this. The pros literally describe themselves as a Swiss Army knife or a specialized generalist. You have to be able to adapt, to pivot, to find opportunities, and just take those small, scrappy steps toward a much bigger mission. And next up are 2 skills that are totally tangled together: strategic and political competency. This is all about having that long-term vision, but also being savvy enough to navigate the messy reality of office politics, power struggles, and, yes, even hidden agendas. One participant gave this brilliant summary: you have to know how to leave the building through the door and enter again through the window. I mean, that says it all, right? It's not just about having a great idea. It's about having the tactical skill to make it happen inside a complex human system. Okay, so we've covered the thinking skills and the action-oriented skills, but there's one last piece of the puzzle, and it's all about how these pros stay at the top of their game.
The study identified these two sides of the same coin. On one hand, you have topical knowledge. That's the stuff you learn from books, the science, and the theory. And on the other hand, you have lived experience, the practical, in-the-trenches knowledge of what actually works in the real world. And here's the real secret sauce. Even these dinosaurs, with all their decades of experience, said they are constantly learning. Success isn't about knowing everything up front. It's about being a lifelong learner, constantly mixing that book knowledge with real-world practice, by doing, by sharing, and by learning from everyone around you. Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question to think about. This research seems to show a real gap between what we often teach and what's actually needed. So we've got to ask, are we preparing professionals for the world as it is, or for a cleaner, simpler world that we wish it were? The playbook from these veterans seems pretty clear. The answer is found in the doing, not just the thinking.